Today is International Epilepsy Awareness Day. If you are dealing with epilepsy or have someone in your life that has epilepsy, I would like to say first and foremost, just because you have epilepsy doesn't mean that you have seizures. I promised somebody I'd bring that one up. Seizures are a symptom, a very common one with epilepsy, and we're going to spend some time talking about that kind of association. Seizures is a very common effect of having epilepsy, and I have gotten some very recent experience myself. My dog is dealing with epilepsy, probably diagnosed here quite recently. Within the last couple of weeks, we've been dealing with this on and off. Switching meds, what works, what doesn't work. And for the last couple nights, we have been okay. But it can be very scary going through a seizure. Typically, what you may think a seizure looks like is someone laying on the floor and convulsing. And that's certainly an example. But sometimes a seizure is just a slight loss of consciousness, or the cognitive function isn't what it was, or sometimes there's numbness or tingling. So it doesn't necessarily mean grand mal is what most of us are referring to, but as a seizure doesn't necessarily mean that you're laid up on the floor having concerns that way. But for those of you that have experienced that, it certainly can be scary. And if you've been dealing with epilepsy for a while and seizures are one of your symptoms, there are triggers, and you begin to learn when you live with these types of conditions what those may be and what they mean to you. We're going to back up to a little bit of awareness first. Epilepsy is one of the most common neurological diseases in the world. And I was looking up some stats yesterday. According to the World Health Organization, almost 50 million people worldwide suffer from a form of epilepsy, and about 30% do not respond to treatment. I forgot to turn my lights on. It's a little dark here. One sec. I'm going to do that quick. I always forget my lights because they blind me, and I don't realize till I'm sitting there that there. So that's a little better. We're going to talk about one of the big things that can improve epilepsy today, which is, of course, exercise, activity, movement. It can certainly lower your chance of having a seizure if that is one of the things that you deal with. So when the WHO says things like 30% of people do not respond to treatment is a very big, very vague word. And I would suspect the majority of that is going to be related to studies that they have conducted, or pharmaceutical prescriptions and things like that. So today I don't want to talk about sedating you. That is certainly something that I personally am having to deal with my dog. If you are dealing with this, I deal with a lot of special needs children in my group, and some of them do have epilepsy, but some of them have seizures just because they have neurological disorders. So it certainly does not mean that you have epilepsy if you have seizures. You might have seizures due to an old car accident where you suffered a head trauma. There's different reasons that people have seizures, but if you are diagnosed with epilepsy, and this is one of the symptoms that you are dealing with, of course, exercise, as I said, is a great way to lower your chance of a seizure. In particular, cardio, increasing lung function, endurance capacity, those types of things. Exercise is a great way to lower stress, which is another big trigger if you're dealing with epilepsy. Stress is a big trigger for mental stress, oxidative stress on the body. There's lots of different reasons. You're stressed out. Sometimes I feel like I'm having a seizure because I'm so stressed out, perhaps. And then other things to keep in mind: if you do have seizures, you can still exercise and be safe. If it's a new diagnosis or something that you're recently dealing with, there's certain periods, in which you may develop this as course of a disease. But over time, as you manage this and as part of your self-care, you begin to learn what some of your triggers are. And one of my big experiences, I have been in sessions with clients that have experienced seizures while using their vibration plates. And this is typically, I just want to lay this as a caution. Epilepsy used to be, years and years and years ago, epilepsy used to be a contraindication for whole body vibration. And so did many other things for that matter, rheumatoid arthritis. That there, as whole body vibration becomes more understood and more widely used, like treadmills and bikes and other things, you'll begin to learn that it's really just movement. It's not shockwave therapy. And the average Life Pro plate, and for that majority of the consumer grade plates, if you're not dealing with high load medical grade plates, the risks in my personal experience are very different. If you are using a medical grade, you are using a high frequency vibration platform. I'm going to say generally, because there's different types of machines, so it's never just a number. When everyone comes in and says, "Oh, well, 40 hertz or 10 hertz or 10 hertz," there's different movement types. And so the biggest recommendation in my experience, and more of the research has been around for 60, 70 years on these machines. But because of the nature of epilepsy and it not being uncommon that seizures are a symptom, unless you're very experienced using vibration machines, if you don't really understand and there's still fear and a lack of understanding, you're probably not going to be using a plate with your epilepsy clients as your first go-to. My experience was using a high frequency plate. I've had several instances, but they've all been in the much higher frequency ranges. And in my experience, it has been at the end of a day or the end of a routine where the body was already taxed and pretty fatigued to begin with. So if you are using a vibration plate and you have epilepsy, you're going to be far stretched to find specific studies. You're going to find a lot on using it for neurological deficiencies, neuroprotection, things like this. And this falls into that category. So if you are dealing with epilepsy, I do want you to talk to your doctor, not just related to a vibration plate, but you should have the discussion as far as what exercises are maybe best for you. If there's any that for your situation, maybe you're dealing with something else. Maybe you've got epilepsy and scoliosis, or maybe you've got epilepsy and diabetes. So sometimes there are other contributing factors. So you should have that discussion with your doctor to see which types of activities and specific exercises might be best for you, and the best ways for you to stay safe when you are exercising. What does that mean? Symptoms can crop up. It might be fatigue. It might be numbness. It might be a panic attack. It might be a seizure. So you want to make sure that you're in an environment that you're comfortable, and God forbid you do have a severe symptom, you've got room to go through that situation. And although exercise is good, it can also start a seizure. So you want to make sure, really pay attention to your fatigue levels. Take lots of breaks, especially if you are out of shape now, whether you have epilepsy or not. The endurance, or how long or with how much veracity you can exercise, is going to vary based on the body that you're dealing with and your current conditioning levels. So I think sometimes the reason they recommend cardio activities is sometimes we're afraid to push our bodies to a level of fatigue, whether it's running, swimming, weights, a vibration plate, because we're afraid it's going to bring on a seizure. And there's so much bad press out there because people make assumptions and they read the headline, but they don't read the whole study, or they don't read the whole discussion, or they just see one comment in a news post and they don't read, the justifications or where some of this is coming from. So when people ask me, "Oh, I heard that vibration machines cause seizures," I want to see where. Show me the study. Where is this coming from so I can further vet? Because 9 times out of 10, it's one of two things. It's another piece of equipment that is trying to sell their product to you. So it's fear mongering. And if any of you have seen some of my posts, when those things come up, I get a little defensive after answering the same questions for the past 17 years. The second reason it occurs is you're pushing yourself. You're pushing yourself because the vibration machines are so much more effective at gaining benefit on whatever that floor-based exercise is. If you're doing it on the machine, there's reasons you would want to, less impact, less effort on your part, but it's easy to go a little longer than maybe you should have, because most of the machines are set for 10 to 15 minutes. It's making you move, feel good, things are loosening up. But if you're coming from a very inactive place, be conservative. Conservative to Debbie. Debbie is one of many trainers out there. There is no cookie cutter, do this for this long at this speed for epilepsy, or do this at this setting or program for this long for diabetes. The body doesn't work that way, nor do these machines. The two factors that you control, of course, are your amplitude, and your amplitude varies depending on what style of plate you're using. So for my Life Pro machines, oscillating is all Debbie does her coaching in. Why? Because that's how you walk. I'm all about functional training. I'm about moving and improving your physical structure so that you can have a better day, a better life, a better baseball game, a better swim at the pool, whatever it is. If you're very, very few people just use the vibration plate for everything. I do, because I'm crazy about them, and that's all that I do all day. But most of you are playing sports or doing other activities, and sometimes a plate is that recovery tool. Sometimes it's your fitness tool. Maybe you're using it for stretching. So if you're dealing with epilepsy and you're an active person now, your tolerance on the machine, your durations, what your positions might look like are going to be things that you have experience doing. If you're coming from a place of inactivity, you've never seen the inside of a gym, and you don't exercise for purpose, vibration plates are intimidating because you don't know what the moves are. You don't know whether your weight distribution is right. Are you bending your knees enough? Should you be breathing? So it's about learning the basics of the exercise position before you introduce the environment of making it more challenging and more effective. Plus, this is where the fear comes from. So I would suggest, whether you're starting with a vibration plate or whether you're starting to get active, yes, don't push yourself to fatigue if you're just getting started out. That's certainly something you want to do at some point to lose weight, gain strength. There's reasons you build to that. But if you're starting out with epilepsy from a below baseline situation, you want to get things moving, the system's flowing better, the blood, the circulation. Start building conservatively. To me, conservatively is oscillating mode. I'm going to show you a few moves and a few tips, especially if you're dealing with seizures or you're prone to them. Don't get overheated. That's another very big thing. Don't do your workout when it's 40 degrees outside. I work with a lot of folks overseas in Australia, and they've had terrible heat here the last couple months, 40, 45 degrees. No, you're probably not going to want to work out in the middle of the day. So maybe you're changing when you exercise because of it being very hot, either outside or in your dwelling. So make sure you don't get overheated. Drink plenty of water. Those two kind of go hand in hand. You want to make sure you're hydrated. Rest. You need to get sleep. I know I sound like a broken record. This is probably things your doctor have told you, but maybe you haven't had that discussion, or maybe you're avoiding that discussion because you don't want to realize that this is a condition, but there are ways you can manage it. And of course, healthy food. We are what we eat. Whatever work you're doing on your plate, the gym, your bikes, your weights, you want to make sure you're giving your body the nutrients that it needs, not only to perform the tasks, but we're repairing, we're rebuilding new cells, we're rejuvenating our entire body over time. You are what you eat. That's where that comes from. And exercise in a safe place. As I said, make sure you've got lots of space. If you're just starting something new, work with someone that understands seizures. Like if your workout buddy has no clue about your personal health and spooks at a rock running across the road, you may want to work with someone that not only motivates you and is there as a buddy, but God forbid, should something happen, you've got someone that can, make sure that you are in a safe area, that, move things out of the way, give you room, just support you. So that, sometimes, who you surround yourself with when you're exercising or doing therapy is different than who you're hanging out with after at the bar or the dance club. Make sure that there's, like I say, plenty of room if you are prone to seizures when you first start exercising. And try, and if it's a common thing for you, make sure you're working out on soft surfaces, like mats or grass. Don't put yourself in harm's way unnecessarily. Other possible seizure triggers: alcohol, flashing lights, illicit drug use, skipping doses of anti-seizure medications, or taking more than prescribed, perhaps in some cases. The lack of sleep thing. This is from the FDA site in the US. Hormone changes during your menstrual cycle and menopause. So sometimes it's just the hormones are out of whack and it's causing stress, perhaps physically or mentally. And if stress is a trigger, guess what? And then dehydration, of course, is a very big one. We're also going to talk about light therapy today because there's a lot of trash talk. Not just about vibration machines, but light therapy and pulse lights can cause seizures. You know, there's absolutely lots of reasons that those things occur, but it's understanding why. Can lights cause seizures? Absolutely they can, if anyone remembers the Pokemon story from quite a few years back. But it's also understanding what your triggers are. So that's absolutely a discussion for you to have with your doctor. The reason I want to talk about light therapy is if you go into little old Dr. Google and you type light therapy for seizures or light therapy for epilepsy, there's a wealth of information, good and bad, and you need to do the homework on both sides of the fence because the bad stuff's going to show you what to avoid. The good stuff's going to tell you what to spend your time in looking further at. So whether you're looking at LightPro's face masks or the belts, or there's different tools that are absolutely safe for use with epilepsy. Where the risk comes in with light therapies and epilepsy is the visual. This is where sometimes pulse lights at the wrong frequency. I'm going to let you have that discussion with your doctor and dig into it further. LifePro has vetted any of their devices that do have pulse as an option. And even though they operate at frequencies that are, as far as science goes, safe for those of you that are triggered with this stimulus, if you know that lights and especially pulse lights are something that triggers you now, just don't experiment with that. You know, you can still use light therapy, but don't use the flash or the pulse function. You know, if you find when you go to the bar and the flashing neon lights are causing seizures, you know, don't go to the bar or don't sit by the sign. Common sense really, really applies. I don't want those of you that are dealing with seizures as a symptom, and certainly for those of you with epilepsy, because they get interlabeled wrong all the time. Sorry, I've got so many weights here at my feet. I don't want you being shied away from some of these technologies because you or your care provider haven't done the homework. There is by far more benefit and research promoting the use of photomodulation, light therapy, whatever you want to call it, to prevent the symptoms and improve your day-to-day than the bad stuff. And any of the bad, it's not a simple topic to delve into on the vibration machine or the light therapy side. But, you know, pharmaceuticals is kind of getting the showcase in the research world nowadays. And you may need to do a little bit of reading and have discussions with folks like your dermatologists and your physical therapists. A lot of times it's the people that are employing and using the vibration machines or applying the light therapy that have the experience like I do. They can speak from a place of experience. And I would rather speak from a place of 20 years of working with people with epilepsy than looking at some study today and helping you use it for the first time, if that makes sense. Science is never settled, and you need to remain curious because there's so many solutions out there that you just may not be aware of. So to the plate, a couple of things I want to go over very briefly. If you are dealing with epilepsy, the common kind of recommendation out there is to make sure that you are improving your cardiovascular function. And a lot of people think that you can't get cardio from your vibration plate. You can. And if you're coming from a place of inactivity, I assure you, even just after standing on it, you feel kind of huffy and puffy and winded. Why is that? Well, cardiovascular system cardio isn't just the lungs and the breathing capacity. It's that circulatory system and the delivering of the oxygen that you're breathing in. So as we increase circulation, as we increase lymph, as we add slow dynamic movement to the plate, you bet your butt that you're getting your butt kicked on the cardio side. It just really is a matter of applying yourself. And, you know, how often should you do? Oh, I didn't even plug my machine in yet. How often should you be doing? My apologies. I was moving some equipment around for a session just prior here, and I need a power cord. There it is. Oh. There. My apologies. Okay. Oh, we need to come a little bit closer. Okay. Okay. The beauty of using a vibration plate if you are managing the symptoms of epilepsy, and this goes out to my therapists and my care providers too, because of the machine's ability to increase the effects of traditional exercise positions while decreasing the amount of time spent exercising. The big advantage is you can really nip that fatigue thing in the butt. If you're in a strength training phase, or you're accelerating weight loss, things like that, where you want to challenge the muscles, sometimes it's the duration or the length it takes to get to that level of fatigue that puts you at risk when you're dealing with potential seizures and things like that. So one of the beauties in my experience with any type of neurological condition, not just the symptom of having seizures, is a plate kind of soothes the central nerve. It kind of calms it. For some of my home users that use plates for their epilepsy and have had time and experience using it, if you're just starting out, I want you to still learn the basic lessons. You're always in control. The wider you are, the more action you're getting. The closer you are, the less. And because we want to increase effectiveness and decrease the amount of time, I would like you, when you're starting out, when I say conservative in oscillating mode, I'm always referring to a combination of two things. Your foot placement, which is your amplitude. Closer is less movement. Wider is more. You can just look at the difference between my two legs and the amount of shake. The other thing is what speed. Commonly, we think like a treadmill or a bike where we're going to start slow, because I'm just starting out. But on a vibration plate, it's the speeds represent amounts of movement, and the really, really slow speeds are quite choppy and very jarring. I would prefer, instead of a slow speed and a wide foot placement, which is kind of instinctively how we start, because that's how this whole industry tells you to do it, you need to bring your feet closer. Make sure those knees are bent. If you're very, very sensitive, hang on, I'm cutting my head off. If you're very sensitive to head vibrations, which most people that are dealing with epilepsy or seizures, this is where the stigma comes from. It's shaking your head. It's not causing the seizure. It's not causing harm, but it's how we react or paying attention to those triggers that we normally have. And if you have vertigo, if you have dizziness, if moving your head around lots is a trigger for your seizures, you need to find other ways to reduce the head vibes. I've done a couple of sessions on this. This is a good add-on if you're dealing with just fear, is really a good reason to start this way. Or if there is a reason, maybe you've got ear issues or new teeth, or you're just triggered by head movement, you get vertigo, things like that. My experience, in all honesty, is more of an improvement, but it's getting past the fear and understanding how to use the plate for your tolerance and your level of comfort, not what I recommend in this black and white protocol, because it doesn't exist. So I'm using the Aeroflex step beside me. You can get creative if you have an Aeroflex step. It's really the ideal tool to go with your plate for these type of things. But it simply gives you more surface that is not moving, the same height as your plate. And if you're really, really fearful, but you are trying to strengthen the body, you're trying to do exercises on your vibration plate, you want to reduce the amount of time you spend exercising, because we know exercise is good at reducing potentially getting seizures. Try this. So one foot is on dry land. Keep your foot still somewhat close to the center on the plate that's on the machine, or the foot that's on the machine, and bring it up to a mid-speed and just bend slightly. And what I'd like you to practice doing is sort of shifting your weight to the machine, and you'll see, oh, more vibe, oh, shift back. You just start getting your body used to it. It's going to take even the fittest of athletes 2 to 3 weeks before their body knows what this thing is. The body tends to guard and protect. The body's very lazy. Whether you have issues or not, it's always going to try and find the easiest way to do things. And when we're standing on a vibration plate, and I encourage you to bend your knees, try getting into a light squat if you can. You're going to engage these muscles. You're going to burn more calories. You're going to have more strength getting up out of your chair. You're going to feel more stable. You're going to have more energy. But sometimes we're out of shape, or we're not used to doing these exercises, and our body, it doesn't want to do them. So without realizing, one of the most common things that people do when they first start is all of a sudden I'm feeling a bunch of head vibration again. It's because we've stood up again without even realizing. You want to feel, and I'm going to get back on the machine, you want to feel like the legs are doing the work, not like your body's being moved all over. You know, when you're standing on the plate, knees slightly bent, sure, you're getting the same lymph circulation, you're getting good balance because your body's being forced to stabilize, but it is a little bit wobbly on the head. The wider you are, the more wobbly it is on the head. So keep those feet functional, hip width apart. If at any speed it's still too strong or still too scary, you can bring your feet closer to reduce intensity. The other thing I really, really want to encourage if you're working on a plate for the first time or you've had a scare is give yourself something to hang on to. So if you do have a moment of fatigue, or you have a moment of imbalance, or you feel like you just don't want to do this anymore, you can give yourself something to hang on to. You'll notice I always do my sessions with a stool. My stool is always kind of dual purpose. It's kind of a mental thing, having something to hang on to. So if you aren't terribly stable, if you are fearful, maybe having something to hang on to is a good option to start. Put your machine by a wall where you've got room to just put your fingertips on it. Perhaps put it in the kitchen, by the kitchen island, in the bathroom, in front of the counter, anywhere that you can commit 5 to 10 minutes a day. If you're using this to manage symptoms throughout the day, you want to put it somewhere that it's accessible. So the biggest tip I can give you if you're dealing with epilepsy and seizures are one of your symptoms is to just give your body the time that it needs to become assimilated to the plate. Don't do everything in the book, or don't do everything in the video that I did this week just because you know it's good for A, B, and C. Give your body time to get used to this stimulation. And a good way to do that is seated in the chair. You're really only feeling it up sort of between up to the thighs. Play with your foot position. Play with the different preset programs. When you decide that you are comfortable to stand, try and keep the knees slightly bent. I would love to give you short-term the gift of better energy, less fatigue throughout the day. One of the biggest reasons I would say my epileptic adults use it is for the energy burst. So I know we all want to lose weight and get fit, and those are the mid to longer term goals. But if you're unstable and you're tired all the time, none of that seems ever possible. So try and bend the knees even to just a bit of a light squat. It's going to give you so much more in strength, stability, and it's going to give you an energy burst. So throughout the course of the day, 30 seconds to a minute, maybe 2 minutes, whenever you need. If you start going beyond 2 to 3, 4, 5, because it feels good, you start sort of counterbalancing, and maybe you're using up some of that energy and defeating the purpose of why we're using this for symptom management. Another common one with epilepsy is the pins and the needles. If you have areas in your feet where this is prominent, where you feel those nerve signals fluttering, you can put your feet. If you've got sensitivities and you're fearful to stand, maybe it's developed and it feels more like neuropathy, just getting some sensation into the feet. Last week's session, I used a roller, and I'm looking around for that roller. I think I have it upstairs. I use a foam pool noodle, and I just roll my feet back and forth on it. So sometimes just get, regaining some circulation and some lymph in the feet, warming up the muscle tissue. Cold feet is another thing. Before you stand, and you'll feel much more sure-footed, and you'll have a little bit more energy to do the standing work. If you're very, very below baseline and you're in a recovery situation, seated is a good way to reduce body weight so that you're only exposing the lower extremities. If you are exercising now at the gym, you're doing big activities, and you're dealing with epilepsy, and you kind of are more in tune with what might present, or what's going to push symptoms to occur. Work within the same type of exercises if you're doing them now. So if you're doing push-ups, if you're doing planks, if you are doing bridges, again, a vibration machine is simply an environment that increases the effectiveness through all these little micro movements of each individual position, stretch, massage, whatever it is that you're doing on it. and decreases the amount of effort and time spent on your part. So do the same things you do on the floor now, but there's a couple of tips I just want to go over very briefly for the head vibe and how to minimize that. I've also done this in a number of sessions, but I haven't done this one in some time. So I want to make sure that you can see me from the angle I want. I'm too tall. Okay, so when you're putting upper body on the machine, just like when you're standing, you are always in control. So if you have epilepsy, the biggest thing I wanted to teach you is to minimize the head vibration. So if you're doing push-ups now at the gym, we have a tendency to be looking down at our hands, okay? What I want you to do is push your body just slightly forward so that the shoulders are above the hands. And you're going to feel the vibration change dramatically. Excuse me. So I would like for upper body, same equation, closer hands and a faster speed. You'll appreciate this lesson with your upper body because it's much more rattle, especially for my ladies. We're dealing with smaller muscle groups. The body's absorbing the movement in a different way than the quads and the larger glute muscles, okay? So you'll notice I'm on my knees. This is not about doing the meanest push-up that you personally can do. Upper body, I want you giving your body time to get used to how it feels, what speed feels nice for you, where you like your hands, before you do full on to the toes and make it the hardest one that you've ever done. So line the hands up, not all the way in the center, but certainly not wider than necessary. And bend the elbows slightly. So you'll notice right now, my head is right above my hands. I'm going to go wider so you can hear it in my voice. If I push myself forward just slightly, you'll also see it's more now in my shoulders, my triceps, my upper and mid back. And you don't even hear it in my voice, do you? Very, very little, okay? It takes a little bit more control and a little bit more strength to hold your body just with the shoulders above the hands. That's why I want you on your knees starting out. And then once you kind of learn, if you're feeling it too much in the head and in your upper body, you've probably, just like I pointed out in standing, your body's always trying to make it easier. And by pushing your body ever so slightly forward, it's more mass on your arms. It has to hold up more of your body weight. So what the body does, because it doesn't want to do more work than it has to, is it kind of floats backwards a little bit and gets those shoulders above the hands, often locking the elbows, which is totally going to make the shake even worse. So if you're noticing it's back in the head, make sure the elbows are undone. They're unlocked, just like when you're standing. And make sure you push your body forward so that those shoulders are above the hands instead. And just hold still. You're going to notice a little bit of an increase on the lung function. You're probably breathing a little heavier. Once you feel comfortable, and even if you perfected the squat and just started experimenting with the push-up regularly, a lot of the moderated positions versus going full on is going to be very therapeutic. You're still going to get all that circulation and lymph, but a little bit more direct. But I'm trying to get you used to how to control the head vibes for you personally. I think years ago, when epilepsy was a contraindication of vibration machines and lots of different exercise that was high impact for that matter, there was an assumption that this shaking of the head, is going to cause a seizure or cognitive issues. But I know a lot of people with seizures as a symptom, whether it's epilepsy or not, and they jog, they run, they play high impact sports, but you do need to pay attention to your triggers. And you probably shouldn't exercise alone, mountain climbing, things like that. I would recommend if your seizures are not under control, have a workout buddy or have someone close by that you could call out to if there is an issue. As far as your vibration plate, if you have one and you are looking at using it to manage symptoms of epilepsy or just because you want some fitness gains, same rule applies. You're starting a new activity, talk to your doctor, make sure that it's appropriate. And I'm looking for my glasses. And I don't know where I put my glasses. And B, make sure that you're starting at an appropriate level as far as fatigue, the right exercise positions. If there's anything that you should avoid, those types of tips would apply. All the machine is an environment. Again, it's not rocket science. My only precaution is if you are dealing with higher loading equipment. So in oscillating, if you're dealing with some of the medical grade and some of the vertical plates that have very high amplitudes, vertical machines tend to have higher frequencies, so they're moving faster, but they have much less movement, much less amplitude. On your oscillating plates, you have slower frequencies, so they're moving less times per second, but you have much bigger amplitudes. And why I am so adamant about oscillating being my machine of choice, if I could only pick one, because it suits more bodies and it's better tolerated by more bodies. So for those of you dealing with epilepsy, another secondary thing is balance. Balance is a very real scare if it's not good and you're trying to live about your day. That's the first thing that improves on a vibration plate. And quite quickly, I might add, if you are dealing with poor balance, 10, 15 seconds on this thing, feet close, just standing, you'll feel more grounded. You'll feel more stable when you get off of it. So a lot of times it's using your plate throughout the course of the day as a lifestyle tool. And if you choose to be active in exercise, no different than the general population right now, it's doing exercise type positions, the squats, the push-ups, the planks, the crunches, if you're looking for those types of gains. So if you're just starting out again, get used to the plate, play around with how it feels, start seated or divide the weight as I've suggested here. I found my glasses. I didn't show with upper body, but I did with standing. You can also, if you find with your push-ups, my little trick hasn't minimized the head vibe, you can also use the step beside the plate for upper body. So if you want to put one hand on the plate, one hand on dry lounge, you'll have to do both sides, but you 100% eliminate all of the head vibration. How much intensity? If you're out wider on the plate, you're going to get more movement. If you're closer, you're going to get less. This is also a really good trick for different body types. So if I'm dealing with a guy that's like 7'2" and his shoulders are wider than the plate, he kind of wants to be wider on the hands because that's what's comfortable. So you can get a really wide push-up by using a step on the side. The other reason you may want to do a trick like this, you want to maybe when you're standing, you're dealing with a lot of mass, especially in the thighs, and it's hard to bring those feet closer to the center, but you want to reduce the amount of movement because wide just is too shaky. So this is also a really good way to do that. For my, I don't know if you're into martial arts, things like that, where you're doing like wider stances. This is a little off topic, but there's lots of reasons that you can use a step to minimize the vibration to the head and the neck. But it's also a great tool if you want to widen your stance and are limited by the width of your plate if you've run into that. So that's just a couple tips since I already had this here. It's hard for me not to go off on tangents. I'm bad for that. So I'm going to come back for questions. And if any of you are using a plate right now, tell me where you're from. I would love to hear your good and bad experiences because I know they're out there on both sides of the fence. And unless we talk about some of the scary stuff, it's some of you are never going to get to the good stuff. So I do want to ask if anyone's got questions. Facebook user, I've actually had epilepsy since 17. It's no longer crown mal. It's tonic colonic. Oh, thank you for telling me that. I'll put that in my notes for the session. Probably old school on my part. I have a very large special needs group with a lot of families throughout the world. And so even with some of the conditions I deal with, they're spelled same like lipedema. It's an uncommonly known condition, a very common one, but it's spelled with an O in one part of the world and without in the other. And it makes it very hard sometimes when you're seeking information because you don't know what it's called. You just know that things are happening and your body's having tremors or seizures, if you will. So thank you for clarifying that. If you are using a vibration plate, and you have epilepsy or you have seizures as a symptom of a medical condition, really today I wanted to express there's no reason to fear. I want to encourage you to explore further. If you're dealing with a care provider that is unknowledgeable on vibration plates, there's a couple of really awesome blog articles that I have contributed to. Amber's got a few if you wanted something in writing. Sometimes it's hard to get your doctor to watch an info session when Debbie rambles for an hour and a half, but it's simply movement. And unfortunately, there's a lot of discussion out there around vibration being bad or potentially causing seizures or physical effects. And that's usually more due to similar terminology. I always say occupational vibrational exposure is something that when you're searching on the internet, because of the word whole body vibration machine, the term whole body vibration exposure is in a lot of your workplace manuals as a bad thing. And that's more related to industrial equipment, big yellow things with four wheels, where you're hanging onto a vibrating steer wheel and a gravel pit all day, or a tamper. And typically with occupational exposure, they're very long durations at very high frequencies for days, years at a time. So, it's a 7 to 8 hour a day job for you that you're doing 5 days a week. The frequencies are high, in excess of 100 hertz typically with some of this equipment. But it's the time and the years of exposure that cause detrimental effects to the circulatory and other things. This is much slower frequency. The type of vibration is very controlled, very purposeful, much more like we walk versus this type of thing. So make sure you're not mixing one up with the other. If anyone has had a poor experience, whether you're joining me live today or you're watching this on a recorded basis, and you've had a spook and you're not sure how to progress with this piece of equipment, please, please, please never hesitate to tag me at Debbie with a Y. And everyone is unique, whether you're dealing with seizures or not. They're all individual to you, in how they vary, in occurrence, severity, those type of things. So if you're using a vibration plate and you just have some questions or some fears, please never hesitate to tag me at Debbie with a Y, and I'll address that directly. Sometimes if you don't do the at Debbie or the at Amber or the at Roseanne, and if the conversation goes like this, sometimes we don't see all the dialogue between the replies, and Facebook doesn't always organize things the best it could. And it's different between the VIP group and the main page as well, depending on your comments. There's sometimes I try to put links in the main page and I can't do that. And then because I'm from Canada, I can't put things in links, and it's just becoming a very administrative world. So if you did have something specific you needed, we're always here as a resource, whether it's via email or if we need to get on a phone call as well. Anyone else out there wanted to contribute today? A little bit of housekeeping. There's a review contest. I will drop that in the link as well for those of you that are not aware. There's been some pretty awesome giveaways here since the new year started with Life Pro. This one is a review contest. You need to post proof of your review, and I will get that posted up in the comments after our live ends today. There's a link. You can do a review on any platform. It will be, I think they're tapping off at 50 people. Not entries. There's ways to get more than one entry. So pay attention close in the details, and I will get that out to you here as soon as we wrap. I will be here also next Monday for something exciting. I don't know what yet. This week is Valentine's Day. So for those of you that are going out celebrating your loved ones, enjoy that. For those of you that maybe aren't big Valentine's Day fans or aren't celebrating this year, love yourself. Self-love and self-care and many of these things are why we deal with many of the conditions that we do. So if you find yourself alone on Valentine's Day, love yourself and have some time, some self-care on the machine, maybe in your sauna, your light therapies. I'll switch very briefly back to light therapies. If you are dealing with epilepsy, if this is something you've been looking into to complement your routine, same diligence as I recommended with the vibration plates. Do your homework. I have a lot of people that are giving me feedback that, didn't talk to their doctor and, they just happen to have one, or they've been using one at the gym or something, and they're seeing all kinds of weird improvements. I'm ocular improvements, circulatory improvements, pain reduction, reduction of severity of seizures. So there's all kinds of evidence out there. Sometimes it's sorting through the marketing and the fear mongering to get to the good stuff. But there's a ton of evidence out there for both vibration plates and light therapies, whether that's visual lights, something more like infrared, where you're looking to accelerate weight loss. Just because you have epilepsy or are suffering from seizures does not mean that it is a death sentence and that you have to be on pills for the rest of your life. There's lots and lots of alternative therapies out there. Make sure you invest your time and educate yourself on some of these. And there's tons of research as of recent. So myself, Amber, and Roseanne are here to fill in some of the blanks on what we're learning as well, and how much of that relates to Life Pros products. So thank you for joining me today. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great Valentine's week. Love you lots. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Monday. Thank you for joining me. Don't work too hard. And thanks again for the term update. I always love learning something new, especially when I'm here to teach you something. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Don't work too hard.